Yeah, a very warm welcome to Wellbeing 2025 checklist. My name is Carly Phillips. It's my privilege to host today's event, and I welcome you here today. If this is the first time you have ever joined a wellbeing event by CWH, I want to send a very warm welcome to you. Welcome to our community and to our network. I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land from wherever you are dialing in from today. I'm dialing in today from the land of the Bunurong and the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and I'd like to pay my respect to elders past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge anyone on the call with lived experience or the caring of those with mental ill health. Today, I am very excited to welcome two of our business partners, Natasha Piner, who is the Learning and Development Officer at LG Pro. Hello, Natasha. And Aileen Senior, who is the NQAC Manager at Nestle, who have very kindly offered to come along and share a case study with you. Case studies are super popular, so I'm very happy to have them here today. We're going to do an open Q&A at the end of today's webinar, which is why I have done a 90-minute event. I am going to do my absolute best to put all of the content into the first 60 minutes because I know time is absolutely precious. But sometimes there's some fantastic conversation and questions that happens at the end. So I have allowed right through until 11:30 this morning. If you've got questions, hold them till the end, and I'd be really happy to take them for you then. So today, we are talking about a Wellbeing 2025 checklist. If you got my email this morning, you will see there is a checklist that you can actually download. I'm going to pop it in the chat for you just in case you didn't get that this morning. There is a PDF that you can print off and you can fill out. It's actually just a worksheet, a single worksheet. So if you want to grab a pen and fill it out as you go through, that would be great. I've just put a PowerPoint copy in there as well. Sometimes people like to do a digital editable version, so feel free to do that. My intention is that by the end of today's wellbeing event, you have absolutely everything you can see on the screen. So we are literally going to go through step by step everything you will need for wellbeing in 2025 in your workplace. I will also be giving you all of these free wellbeing tools at the end of the session. So there will be a QR code that you can scan and you can download all of these free tools at the end of the session. So I don't do all this work on my own. I have this fabulous team of CWH wellbeing facilitators. You might know some of them from your workplace. Each have their own specialty in health and wellbeing, which is why we can provide such a big, broad range of topics across our portfolio. We've also got a fabulous team who work within the business in the back end with Lyndall and Michael and Sharon, who help to provide some fantastic resources for you. So a big shout out to them. You might know me as a lead researcher in some of the research that I do in regional Australia. Most of these are government funded, and we're finding some very interesting employee wellbeing metrics and risks, particularly across regional Australia. So I share a lot of those in my webinars as well. We also do a lot of government work. So we do university work, we do a lot of local council work. You can see photos in the bottom. Yes, I'm there in high vis and boots. Yes, I deliver men's health toolbox talks to groups of men. Yes, we deliver women's groups talks, all sorts of things. If you need people on the ground delivering things on site, we absolutely have the ability to do that. And we also do corporate partnerships with lots of businesses right around Australia. So things like keynotes, we do masterclasses, we do online things, we have an e-learning management system, so we can deliver things all over Australia in whatever way your employees need. Let me jump straight into what everyone wants to know, which is what are the hot topics in wellbeing in 2025. I've got lots of research that I've been really looking forward to sharing with you today. Ongoing burnout prevention. The reason I've put this down the bottom on this big temperature scale is because it's not new. We've been talking about burnout for years in the workplace, but I want to share with you a little bit of research. 61% of Australian employees have reported experiencing burnout compared to that global number, which is below 50%. So we're actually worse than the rest of the world. And burnout is now attributed to 40% of resignations. So this is having a massive impact to retention rates. Of course, it's got an enormous economic impact, $14 billion annually in Australia. 56% of workers say flexibility is probably the top way their workplace could support them better to protect them from burnout. And 70% of employers are not doing enough to prevent burnout. So we've just got a huge gap there. The State of Workplace Burnout Report in 2024 showed us that burnout is growing in women up to 42%, and it's decreasing in men. It's down to 30%. So that was a really interesting new piece of research that came out. Now, what employees need is they need tools to help protect them, right, from burnout. They need to be working less than 40 hours a week. And if they do, they get higher engagement, better well-being, and lower rates of burnout. Doing hybrid work and having a bit of flexibility is really helpful as well. And just here's an example taken from France. Did you know that it is illegal to eat lunch at your desk at work? Isn't that interesting? Can I have a show of hands? How many people eat lunch at their desk during work? Yeah, so we've got a long way to go when we talk about burnout prevention, right? Okay, the next group of hot topics are mental ill health at work and how we support people who are struggling at work and how we help to protect people from workload management. So here's what we know. The World Health Organization says the global cost of mental health issues is over $1 trillion per year due to lost productivity. Nearly half of us will experience a mental health illness in our lifetime. It's the leading cause of absenteeism at work, and research shows that more than half Australian workers hide their condition from their employer. So we still have stigma in Australia that is real. Now, this morning, I went to a US Headspace webinar at 6 a.m. our time, and there were some clinical psychologists on there who shared something fascinating when we think about how do we support people at work. They said that there are much higher expectations about workplace support, particularly with younger generations, that mental health support is now a required core benefit when they're looking for new jobs. And we need to also pay attention to the sandwich generation who are caring for children and for parents, as in my situation. And we need to consider peer support, so making sure people know how to have these conversations, not just from top down, but peer to peer as well. They said that an ongoing communication plan is really important to make sure people have access to resources, and that's one way we can help support people at work. Workload management, it's actually starting to come up as one of the top psychosocial risks when people are doing their audits, lack of resources, and then just high demand for all of our output. And 52% of employees, according to PwC, say that their workload has increased significantly in the last year. So that's a big deal, right? Now, here's something that makes me happy. That is talking about longevity and a new view on aging. I love that we are having these conversations now. So a new view on aging. Here in Australia in 2026, 22% of us will be 65 years plus, and that number has doubled since 1970. So you take the kind of baby boomers and the falling birth rates, and we've just got an aging population in Australia. 42% of people say their attitude towards aging is influenced by celebrities And 23% of they say it's a positive impact. So we're seeing some lovely role models out in our community now who are doing a lovely job of talking about longevity and a new view of aging. And that includes, much to my delight, opening up the conversation about menopause. We've actually introduced it into our menu this year because we've had such a big demand for, can we please have this conversation at work, talking about midlife and talking about menopause. As we get right to some of the hottest topics in wellbeing, we know that health devices and apps are definitely increasing in demand, as are on-site EAPs. So with the health devices, what we know is there's a really consistent increase in usage of smart devices and apps, things like fitness trackers and all sorts of health devices to support us. Millennials and Gen Zers are using them quite a lot, very high adopters. And we want to make sure we've got access to some of these resources through our workplaces. EAPs, we know in Australia, utilisation sits at about 5%. In retail, construction and manufacturing, that goes as low as 2%. And in finance, government and other utility professions, it goes up to about 9%, but still really low, right? So with the current wait lists in Australia to see a psychologist of currently sitting between 2 and 5 months and sometimes longer, I think considering on-site EAPs could be a fabulous support for our employees. The other top two, right up the top, are data-driven wellbeing programs, as well as psych safety. So what we know about data-driven wellbeing programs is the old traditional approaches don't work very well. So the kind of generic off-the-shelf programs, we're not measuring, we're not getting any sort of consistent outcomes. We're just kind of doing a tick the box exercise. Actually, the key to getting real behavior change and real outcomes and impact is to make sure you have data with which to build and identify and to measure. Really important throughout our whole wellbeing program. If people are not turning up to your program, it's usually not specific enough. It's not meeting their needs. It's not driven by data. So go back and reassess. We're going to show you how to do that in today's webinar. And psych safety is huge. Regulations are now in every state in Australia. Victorian companies keep saying to me, oh, we don't have the regs yet. We don't need to do that. But I've spoken with WorkSafe Vic, and we are still legally bound in Victoria by the national legislation and the national regs in that space. So we still do have an obligation to do that. And what's more, I've had a few companies in Victoria say to me in the last 3 months that they have had inspectors come out and starting to ask them, have you identified your risks and have you got your action plan in place? So do not wait. Make sure you get this happening straight away. I'm going to show you a case study on how to follow the process of psych safety in a workplace next. So they didn't pick people, but they picked the actual roles that they wanted to be certified in this space, which I absolutely loved. And they shared with me that when the safe work inspectors came around and said, what are you doing in the psychosocial space? They said, look, we've got this training matrix in place. We've got mental health first aiders. We're training people in safe conversations. We're upskilling people to make sure they know how to report, how they keep people safe, how they start to control these. And the inspectors were really happy that they had that in place. They then went ahead and did the people at work audit. So if you haven't done the audit and you're thinking this whole area is just a big space that I don't know where to start, I just want to share with you how easy this was for them to implement in their workplace. I'm going to put a link in the chat box now, which is going to have 2 things in here for you. One is the people at work survey, and the other one is the actual code of practice. So both of those things are going to be helpful for you if you have not done this before, you literally jump onto the People at Work website, you create your link for your audit, you send it out to all your employees. This particular client did that and got 300 responses. We got their report. We jumped into step 4. We sat down with myself and Bill, who's our psychosocial safety facilitator. We went through the report and we showed them every step of the way through that report where all the links and the action plans are, because they're already built into the Safe Work Australia website. So it's a fantastic resource for you to get. We then built a strategy going forward to make sure they had all the resources they needed and that they had a good strategy going forward for safe conversation mates, for coaching, and for toolbox talks. So that's an example of actually what that looks like when you are going through and complying with the psychosocial safety regulations. One thing to mention about Victoria, lots of Victorian organisations say to me, oh, we don't need to do this yet because the regulations aren't in place. Now, I have checked with WorkSafe Vic and they said we are still bound by the Australian standards, and that I've heard from a number of clients in Victoria in the last 3 or 4 months that the inspectors are already asking for this information. So please don't wait, jump in and start making sure you've got this in place. Okay, let's dive into your checklist. Please make sure you've downloaded this. The checklist is in the chat box if you'd like to fill it out as we go through. We are just going to start now by doing the list step by step to make sure you have everything that you need. There is one question that I want to ask you before we start, and that is, what do you need to build a wellbeing program? So if I can ask you to scan the code that you can see on the screen, I just want to make sure that one is active. What is holding you back from building your program? Is it skills that you need or knowledge? Is it buy-in? Is it budget? Is it something that you need that you don't have? What do you need to build your wellbeing program? Let me make sure that, oh yes, it is working. Beautiful. It's always good when the poll works right at the start. Thank you for your comments, Mark. Stratco did the People at Work survey. You had 136 respondents out of 1,300. The reports are excellent. I think people thought they could be identified even if they couldn't. There's always that concern, isn't there? I think it's really helpful to keep messaging that they absolutely do not have that. All right, let's have a look and see. We've got 27 people on the call right now. It would be wonderful if you can jump in and scan that code and pop your reason in there. What do you need to build your wellbeing program? Budget is coming up the biggest. Surprise, surprise. We're going to talk about that today, so I'm glad that's come up. Management, time, capacity, knowledge, resources, leadership endorsement, management support, relevant approvals, education. Okay, big range of things that you need.
Your slide's not updating.
Oh,
It's just still got the QR code there.
oh, thank you, Natasha. Can you see that now? Thank you for letting me know. You're my little buddy on the side. That's wonderful. So you can see everyone's kind of got a different reason. It's 28 people on the call and 30 responses. So I just thank everyone for leaning in and being part of this. This is really interesting to see what some of your peers in other organisations are needing and may perhaps struggling with. So we've got budget and management support have come up as these big two. So we're going to cover those just at the end of the session. So make sure you are here just before 11 o'clock. We're going to cover both of those in this session today. Thank you for your participation. Okay, let's have a look. We're right at the top of the checklist now. So what I would love you to do is fill out the notes section in the column as we go through, whether you have already done this in your workplace or what you actually need to do so that you can get your program set up for next year. So number one, it says we need to assess and we need to do some sort of well-being audit or psychosocial risk audit. So if you've done both of those, you can tick them. If you haven't, I want to show you what a well-being audit looks like. This is all about having a data-driven wellbeing program. So a wellbeing audit is a service that we provide here at Corporate Wellbeing Hub. It is the top thing on your checklist. What we do with an audit is we collect data, which are wellbeing indicators of your employees. We don't collect employee information, personal information, no names or anything like that. But we do ask mental health risks and physical health risks, and we ask workplace wants and needs and benefits. And so that gives you a huge report. So that middle picture, you actually get a wellbeing report, everything benchmark against the Australian guidelines, and you get a strategic plan. So we actually draft up a plan for you to say, here is what we would recommend based on your data that you put forward into your workplace. So that is what a wellbeing audit looks like. If you don't have that, write that on your checklist as to how you would go ahead and collect that data. You may also need to do focus groups at some point throughout this assessment process. So if you do, for example, a psychosocial risk audit and you get your report, they do actually recommend you take that data back to your employees and you set up focus groups and you have conversations about what does this mean for you? So sometimes we get our wellbeing reports and we say, okay, we've got outdoor workers, we've got indoor workers, we've got people working at different levels. This actually means something different for everyone. So we want to go out to focus groups and make sure we know what that means before we go into building strategy. So that takes us to the end of section 1, which is making sure that we know how to assess. Section 2 is making sure we customize, so we don't just pick something off the shelf. I always recommend starting with the health dates calendar because there are so many fabulous resources on here that you can jump into these websites and you can get lots of free information. So don't just grab your calendar and pick what you like. Grab the calendar and align it to your data. So if you have found 2 or 3 risks that you want to address, or you've found 2 or 3 topics that people really need support with in wellbeing, bring that data over and help it to inform your decision about, well, which areas do we want to focus on? Grab your calendar, jump into some of these websites, grab whatever free resources you can, and then we can go further and start to build your wellbeing program. So I would like to invite Natasha Piner to come and share with you all how we build wellbeing programs at LG Pro. We've been working together for a couple of years now, Natasha. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to hand over to you to share your experience.
Thanks, Carly, and hello, everyone. I am on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging as well. So, yes, Carly and I have been working together for a couple of years. I started at LG Pro in 2023 and reached out to Carly, and the way that we structured our webinar HQ series, I didn't know what the local government sector needs were. So we started off with 1 or 2, and then we let people who were participating in the webinars choose which one of 2 topics they wanted to see next. And so that's how we progressed through our 2023 webinar HQ series. Whereas by 2024, I had a better idea of what the local government sector was looking for. So we actually structured, and again, we used the calendar to adapt what we were going to talk about to what the calendar and what was happening out in Australia anyway. So we had a great turnout. We've had great feedback. I love working with Carly, by the way. And some of the topics, some of the feedback that we have received. So great topics that are sometimes taboo or wishy-washy, but important and good to think about. And the entire session was really informative, realistic, and thought-provoking. So the webinars that Carly has provided have been really, really knowledgeable. They've been really positive, very engaging, just like everyone today on the call by diving in and doing the little the Mentomia. We also have topics like caring for the caregivers. So we do find that the lack of resources and the stress, so the caring for the caregivers was really, really good, and that touched quite a lot of people. And really that burnout part was so I'm looking forward to working with Carly again for the next year. And is there anything else that you would like to get from me today?
Let's ask everyone else on the call if anyone's got any questions for Natasha. Natasha's in the middle of actually hosting an online training for LG Pro today, so she needs to jump out in a couple of minutes. If you've got questions for Natasha, pop them in the chat or feel free to take yourself off mute. I just wanted to share this example, and thanks for coming today, Natasha, to do that, because it was a great example of, particularly with the 2023 program, when we didn't really know what people want and we couldn't just survey everyone for the purpose of that. We just had a way of keeping it alive. And so in every event, we just said, what would you like? And we just kind of tailored it to the needs. So it was a way we were sort of surveying on the spot. It was like
Yes.
live surveying all the time, which was a cool way. So if you've got a group of people, perhaps in an association or a membership, or they're kind of 2 degrees removed, that could be a way of doing it. If you're in an organization with employees directly employed, just go out and do the survey at the start of the year or the audit, and then you can build from there.
And it's a great resource, and the information that's shared was fabulous. So it was a very positive experience.
Thank you. It's been so nice working with you. I don't think there's any questions. One more minute if anyone's got any questions for Natasha on the wellbeing program they provide at LG Pro. Otherwise, happy facilitating. I hope your other training goes well today. Thanks for coming,
Thank you.
Natasha.
Thanks, Carly.
Thank
Enjoy the
you.
session, everyone.
Okay, so when we are customizing on your checklist, we are now on step 2, which is to make sure we customize. So we have selected dates, which you would do on your calendar, which I'm going to send you, by the way, as a free download. We want to tailor to meet needs. So what you then do is you go out to your providers. So here is an example. This is our wellbeing menu for 2025. These are all corporate offerings. So what that means is we come out to your workplace and we deliver. We can do it online, we can do it on site, we can do it through e-learning, but they are all delivered at your work. So when you tailor to meet your needs, sometimes I get HR leaders might ring me and say, we want to do 1, 2, 3. And I'll say to them, great, how did you choose those subjects? And they say, oh, they're probably the ones I liked or probably the ones I need. Really common thing to do. And maybe that's okay when you're piloting a new provider or you want to do a bit of a trial. But before you jump in and choose topics off the menu, please go and have a look at your data and make sure you're aligning and picking what your people want. That's really important. Here is an example of how much you could customize and tailor your content. So what I've done in this example is I've taken all of those health dates off the calendar, and you can see each month I've overlaid them specifically with topics. And what you would do is just make sure you pop the right topics in each month that your employees need. I always, always, always recommend starting in February by launching your big wellbeing program, your communication plan with your wellbeing champions or your wellbeing advocates, your wellbeing leaders. You might even have a senior leader who is really bought into wellbeing and really wants to support employee wellbeing. Make a big song and dance of it early in the year, and that will really help engagement as you go through the year as well. I'm going to send you a copy of this. Make sure you are tailoring to meet the needs. Here is an example of a smaller wellbeing program. It actually just highlights So that top row, all employee wellbeing program, it actually highlights one of the hot topics that we talked about was about the different life stages that people are really starting to talk more openly about. So in one of these program streams, you can see we've got men's health, we've got midlife toolbox, so talking about menopause and empowering corporate women. We've got parent well-being by one of our positive psychologists. We do outdoor worker health. We do indoor worker health, which I call well-being shortcuts for the fast lane. And we've now introduced transition to retirement as well. So really important that we have an inclusive program that is giving tools to each of the different life stages of your employees. We also do a leader wellbeing masterclass program. And this program is really tailored for all of your leaders, from basic leader wellbeing masterclasses right through to how they work with their teams, anatomy of a leader, looking at mindset, and then right through to having really sensitive and difficult conversations. So again, tailored, making sure you've got tools for each group of your employees in your workplace. Okay, then what we want to do is on your checklist, it says choose delivery types. It is super, super important that you are offering hyper-personalized delivery. In other words, taking your resources to your people. One mistake that I often see workplaces make is they launch a program. Sometimes they launch it and leave it, so it just goes on a portal and it's kind of not reiterated or promoted throughout the year. But also, it might just be one delivery type. It might be, we're doing online events for a wellbeing program this year. Or it might be, we're just doing things based in the office, and then all of your outdoor or your field workers miss out. So as much as you possibly can, make sure your delivery is really personalized to the roles that you have in your workplace. So that could mean, okay, we're going to do one on-site event, maybe in the office, one at the depot, one at another location, or we're going to do online or e-learning modules, but see down the bottom, it says supplement with short video bites and a one-page resource. Why is this important? Because if you're like me, you might go to an event and you might think, oh, good, I'm super motivated. I got all this information. I'm going to start using this stuff tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes around and I'm really busy and I go, I'm going to start on Monday. And then 2 weeks later, I think, whatever happened to that stuff I wrote down? So what I have done is I build 5-minute video bites and one-page resources into your package. So it's a way of getting employee engagement and really seeing some of that behavior change once the event is over. So you might do an event and then you get a 5-minute video and you send that out the next day. And then you get a one-page resource and you send that out the next week. And then I always encourage, make sure you as a wellbeing champion or a wellbeing lead is then collecting stories, finding out all these successes and these little wins and sharing that, because we know that's really, really motivating for other peers within your organization. The last step on your checklist under customize is to measure your outcomes. Now we've really improved significantly how we measure outcomes for wellbeing. I would consider 2 different formats for this. The first one would be program evaluation. And program evaluation is on the spot feedback. So I would survey every event and every resource on the spot. Do both quantitative and qualitative. So get numbers, ratings, drop down boxes, multiple choice questions and answers, but also do qualitative. So ask people, what did you like? What didn't you like? Have you got ideas and suggestions? Can you collect testimonials? So always doing program evaluation for every single resource. Then you want to have a look at what are the actual employee wellbeing outcomes? What are the short-term things? Can I do my assessments or my audits every 6 to 12 months? Can I check my EAP reports monthly or quarterly? I'm hearing a lot of people not getting their reports. So if you're not, please go back to your EAP provider and make sure you're getting those reports. And you can look at long-term metrics like absenteeism, productivity, claims, retention rates, things like that, and value on investment. Things like morale, positivity, sense of belonging, they are very subjective. So you want to go to your team leaders and directly to your teams to get that information. So measure outcomes is the final step for customization. It really takes us to the final step of how we build our wellbeing program. But now we need to do something really important. And I've put it in big capital letters on your checklist. Pitch your wellbeing case. Now, the way we want to pitch your business case is making sure that we have organizational engagement, both top down and ground up. This is the step that I see a lot of people completely miss. They go ahead and they build their wellbeing program and they don't have really good leadership buy-in, or they don't have people on the ground to help them implement, or they don't have a communication plan and a way of sharing success stories. If you do not have those things, it is really, really hard to get organizational engagement. And the outcome of that can be you create this fabulous program, you launch this fabulous program, and nobody turns up. Anybody had that happen before? Had phone calls from many, many companies. Why is nobody turning up to my program? So this is a really critical step that we, one, pitch our business case to our leaders, but we make sure we have got top down and that we have ground up engagement so that we can really start to see some of this culture change. So a couple of examples that I have here on the screen that I just wanted to talk through. One is Leaders Wellbeing Masterclass. So when we did the survey at the beginning of this webinar, quite a few people said, you know, leadership buy-in and leadership commitment was just not there. We have got a plethora of research, and I'm going to share some of it with you in a minute, the evidence-based ROI and VOI and legal obligations that create a very, very strong business case. And if they are not convinced, I believe they have not seen the right data yet. So we actually show them what the legal obligations are. We show them what a strategic plan looks like. We show them what a budget is. We show them what the return on investment is. So it's really a way of securing leadership buy-in, if you like. The next step is the ground up approach, which is so important. So this is what I would call wellbeing champions. Having people on the ground who can do that peer-to-peer sharing and motivating other employees to come along to your program. So I run a training program called Champion Wellbeing with Unwavering Confidence. And yesterday we did workshop number 5 for the second cohort that came through the program this year. And one of the wellbeing leads, she was actually an HR manager for her site. She said to me, something I have learned from peers in this training program is that I shouldn't be doing this alone. She was trying to build the program, launch the program, get people involved in the program, do all the measurement. She was finding it really stressful to do the whole thing by herself. And one of her peers in a breakout room had said to her, well, do you have a leader who can help you? Do you have mental health first aiders? Do you have wellbeing champions on the ground who can get interaction, help you set up events, motivate and bring people along? And she said, no, I've never thought of doing that before. So for her assignment, they all presented their assignments yesterday. She said, I am putting out an expression of interest to get a whole group of wellbeing champions in my workplace so that they can help build engagement, employee engagement of the program, which I just absolutely loved to hear. So this training program champion wellbeing with unwavering confidence, it's not a workplace program, it goes direct to you. So this is one of the only training programs that we actually offer direct to you, whether you are a work health and safety manager, an HRD, a wellbeing lead, maybe you do a completely different role and you're really just wanting to upskill in wellbeing and trying to learn a bit more about wellbeing at work. It is designed for you. This success story, sharing of success story is a really critical part of engagement. So it's making sure you have a way of collecting stories, whether that's digitally, whether it's through our little message box, whether it's through team leaders or HR. We know collecting stories is such a powerful motivator to get peers involved in improving health and well-being, making sure you've got a really good communication plan for your wellbeing program. That was actually one of the things the clinical psychologists from Headspace mentioned this morning. They said having an ongoing communication plan to reach all employees is going to be a critical part of improving wellbeing at work. They said having workplace policies such as we give you permission to look after yourself. They saw that as a real focus for 2025. So one of the free wellbeing tools you will get at the end of today's session is a wellbeing champion expression of interest template, because there is a trap involved in this. And the trap is you put out a expression of interest and you say, who would like to be a wellbeing champion, or who would like to be a mental health first aider? And sometimes the people who need the most amount of help actually put their hand up. And so in the EOI template, I've actually put criteria in there. And the criteria are things like, are you either well or on your journey to wellness? In other words, do you have enough support around you and the capacity to take on something extra? It's things like, are you influential and well connected? Are you happy to be a role model? Are you happy to promote and advocate and be part of the wellbeing program? Because what you don't want your wellbeing champions to do is to write strategy, is to come up with the entire action plan, is to do the whole thing from end to end. Because what they do is they drop out. It's too much work. So you as the wellbeing lead should be writing the strategy. So in other words, you go through this checklist from beginning to end, you get everything in place. And what you bring your wellbeing champions forward for is to promote, advocate, and motivate people to join in. That is the only thing we should be doing with them. So let me ask you, do you have wellbeing champions at work? Can I please ask you to scan the code and just give us an answer? Yes, you're already set up, or not yet. I'm going to refresh my screen. Can someone give me a thumbs up if you can see the responses on your screen, please? Can someone jump into the chat or just give me a thumbs up? Can you see the responses on the screen or not? I can see 33% and 67% so far. Oh, excellent. Thanks, everybody. Shina, Suzanne, Andrew, Jess, thank you very much. Okay. Do you have wellbeing champions at work? So we've got 27 people on the call. So we're representing 26, 27 different companies across Australia. 35% of you have this set up already. If you do, jump into the chat. Let me know, is this working? Is this helpful? Let me refresh my screen so you can see. Hopefully that's got the right percentages. It says now 39% and 61. Excellent. Thank you. And 61%, so more than half of the companies we have on the call today, do not have wellbeing champions set up. If you're a yes, let us know in the chat, is this helping and working for you? Thanks, Suzanne. We don't call them wellbeing champions. They have completed a mental health first aid certificate. Fantastic. So, a little trick with that when you are certifying your employees in mental health first aid, always ask them, are you happy to be a mental health first aider in our workplace? Because sometimes they just want the certification for their own reason. And are they happy to be a wellbeing champion as part of that? I think that's really important. And Fran, we're just now starting to offer mental health first aid and bolstering this group. They are called staff support. Fantastic. So we can call it all different names. That all works. I'm just going to go back one screen because I would love to welcome Aileen Senior, because the next step in this really is to upskill. And Aileen has been someone who was a manager at Nestle who put her hand up to upskill in the wellbeing space. And she's actually just gone through this training program. So I just wanted to welcome Aileen. She's very kindly offered to come in and share her experience with us. Aileen, can I see you? I saw you jump into the call.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Hello. I couldn't see your face. I can see you now.
Okay.
Welcome. Thank you for coming. Can I hand over to you?
Yeah, sure, no problems. Good morning, everybody. So as Carly mentioned, I am a manager of 23 people working for Nestle across at a laboratory in Mulgrave, Victoria. So I have a keen interest in wellbeing because I believe that it's a foundation for everybody to have a really good working space, and I believe that it improves your KPI significantly. So I recently joined the course that Carly is running, so Champion Wellbeing with Unwavering Confidence. So I think we completed it about a month or so ago. So I found it to be a really good program. The things that we learned about was how to be a wellbeing lead, how to onboard our wellbeing champions, how to create a program, the importance of having a wellbeing program. Also a little bit about return on investment, so how to pitch your wellbeing program and budget to potentially like more senior management to get the money to run your program for 2025. We also learned a little bit about mental and physical health, psychosocial safety, which is a key topic at the moment, and also reward and recharge. So it was a really good reminder about the importance of wellbeing in the workplace. And even though we have a wellbeing program at Nestle, it can be continually improved. So I found that this program is a really good reminder about what I can do better, what I should do differently heading into 2025. So I believe the course would be beneficial no matter where you're up to. So even if you were starting out with wellbeing, or you already had like a base program, or you were quite advanced, I think that there's something for everybody in that space, because you can always kind of do better. One of the other beneficial things that was great to come out of the program is that it was really good to meet with like-minded people. So we got an opportunity to meet with them through the breakout rooms. And I think there was 4 or 5 different organizations that were represented. So when I work with Nestle, we work a lot with our own internal wellbeing champions, but we only really discuss the Nestle strategy, and that can be quite insular. So I really love talking to other people and understanding what their challenges are and also what they're rolling out. So there were some really good ideas and perspectives across some of the other like large organizations within Australia. So that was really, really great. We also had the opportunity to put together a mental health wellbeing assignment. So that was a really good opportunity to kind of put what we've learned into practice. That was really great to see how everyone approached that topic. So even though there was some core, I suppose, things that we had to kind of deliver upon, everyone had their own kind of flair. So I did my assignment on Mental Health Month. So the premise of mine was a chance to have micro moments every day with colleagues that would foster connection, openness, trust, respect, and support. And so such activities that we did through the month of October were completing a puzzle together over a few weeks, having a morning tea where we talked about Safety Month, bringing fresh fruit and sharing that, and talking about nutrition. And we also did some cooking for each other. So I felt that throughout the course, it was a really good reminder to check in each month and learn and focus on wellbeing. So my confidence definitely grew from doing the course. The biggest learning for me was that I was able to widen my perspective. So there's so many businesses doing such great things, and we need to leverage those networks to learn from each other. I would highly recommend the course. So no matter, as I said earlier, no matter where you're up to with your wellbeing program, whether you're just starting out, it's something that you're interested in, or you're, quite advanced, but you need to, get a different perspective or think about what you could potentially do differently to engage others. So anyone that's responsible for actioning wellbeing in a workplace could really do with some additional support externally. And I think that there would be learnings for each level. I think that it also didn't take up too much time. So it was a chance to just kind of check in monthly and build your course, check in with others. But it wasn't kind of, like super content heavy where it took up, lots of time and distracted you from your normal day-to-day workload. So yeah, I'd highly recommend to anybody that was thinking about doing this heading into next year.
Thank you, Aileen. So
No problem.
something that you mentioned about the networking piece and the speaking with other organisations has been feedback from nearly all of the students. That was one of the things they appreciated the most. So as we have changed and modified the program over the year, next year, we're actually doing 2 or 3 breakout rooms in every workshop. So it won't be going over the content. It'll be how do we actually apply this in our workplace and getting ideas from each other. So a very practical kind of hands-on session. The other thing we're changing for next year, so the one we're starting in February on the 25th, we're actually doing an intensive short course because it's the start of the year. If you're someone who's saying, I actually want to build our program for 2025, we're going to do it in 6 weeks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 every week. You're going to get all this information and networking, and then you will get 6 months group training. So the rest of the year, as you go implementing, if you get obstacles, hurdles, you can jump into group coaching and we can help you support through that. So the implementation is really good as well. So I've just put a link to the training in the chat box. If you're interested, you can have a look. We've got enrollments now open for February 2025. If anyone has any questions for Aileen, feel free to ask them now or pop them in the chat. She's very happy to take questions. And I'm just going to load, while you're doing that, I'm just going to refresh our poll on Wellbeing Champions. So 39% saying, yes, you've already got this set up. 61% saying, no, not yet. So if you're on the no, make sure you get the tool that'll come out in the email, follow-up email, that will have the Wellbeing Champion expression of interest template. That'll help you get set up to get your Wellbeing Champions. And then you may want to enroll 1 or 2 of those, even if you've got it set up already, into the program so that they can be upskilled in not just wellbeing, but wellbeing at work and what that actually looks like. It doesn't look like we have any questions. Big thanks, Aileen, for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Problems, Carly. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, we are up to the all-important final part, which is step 3 on your checklist, which is called engage. So we're just down to the bottom 3rd section of your sheet. Step 3 is to engage. This is how we pitch your business case. Why is this important? Because I get phone calls from a lot of wellbeing leads who say to me, I don't have any budget for wellbeing. And I say to them, what have you pitched to your board, to your senior leaders, to your finance director? And they usually say, oh, I'm just waiting to get my budget. And guess what you get when you sit back and wait? You get zip. So what I highly recommend, and I try to empower everyone to do, is to have the knowledge and the skills in how to pitch your business case. And I want to give you these 3 steps that I have tried many times with much success in companies where they have been banging their head against a brick wall for years, not getting any budget. These are the 3 steps that are the most convincing to secure a budget. Step 1, present your employee data. So get your audit, get your wellbeing metrics, get your report, make sure you present the numbers. Step 2, present your data-driven wellbeing program. In other words, your solution to meet those needs. So it's very specific. And step 3, present your budget and your ROI evidence. which I have already shared with you, we have so much of, and I'll show you those numbers on the next screen. A little trick that I'm learning as we go along is that your entire program does not need to be fully funded. Sometimes having services either subsidized, so partly subsidized, or even employee pay, just having the convenience of having them on site, can be just as beneficial as having fully funded. So consider all of those funding models when you are pitching. Here is the evidence that we know really motivates. Two big things out of all of this evidence. You can find all of this on our website and dive into all of the stats. The two big things that I find are absolutely crucial to get your budget over the line are the legal obligations and the increase in retention rates, because they are very motivating for your financial directors, your directors of your company, because they are responsible to comply for the legal obligations. So they absolutely have to make sure they are eliminating psychosocial risks. They're creating a physically and mentally safe workplace. They're doing everything on that list. But the dollars speak pretty loudly as well. So 440% ROI. Pretty impressive. Not a lot of programs in companies will give you an ROI like that. The retention rates, it's the biggest pain point for companies right now, is trying to retain really high quality people. And we know one of the top things that people are now requiring as a benefit is mental health and wellbeing support. So if you're not providing that and shouting it from the rooftops, it's really hard to attract people. So this forms part of your business case when you're putting all of that together. Double check your checklist. In section 3 under engage, you should now have leadership support. So in other words, putting this business case together to make sure you can get leadership buy-in. You should have wellbeing champions, and I'll give you the template for the expression of interest. And you should have a way to share stories and a really strong communication plan. That should take you right down to the bottom of the checklist. Is your worksheet completely finished? Do you have any questions or anything outstanding you need to add to that, or you would like to ask me? Before we finish today, I want to give you all the wellbeing tools that I have talked about in today's session. Please scan the code and go ahead and order all of these free tools in here. I'm going to put a link in the chat just in case that QR code is not working for anyone. This is another place that you can go in and you can order your tools. All the tools on the screen are free for you. So you get the checklist, you get the calendar dates, you get the events calendar, and you get the Wellbeing Champion EOI template. That should give you, along with everything you have filled out today, absolutely everything you need for 2025. I really hope that was helpful for you. I think I've been successful, 10:59, of putting absolutely all of the information into the first 60 minutes of today's session. I hope that was of high value to you. I have left 30 minutes now for open Q&A. If things have come up for you, go ahead and pop them in the chat box, or feel free to take yourself off mute. Really happy to have a conversation. Make sure you've ordered whatever tools you need using this form, this QR code, and I will send all of that out to you today. This is actually a really nice time to be doing some planning. And if you're working in January and it's nice and quiet in the office, that might be a really nice time to do some planning, because we really want to have your program up and running by February. If you're still feeling like you need some more skills and some more tools, I would love to invite you to come and join us at the Champion Wellbeing with Unwavering Confidence program we're kicking off in February 2025. I'm going to open now for Q&A. Feel free to take yourself off mute, turn your camera on, jump into the chat. Very happy to answer your questions. If you have to run off to another meeting, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Let me open for Q&A now.